The 2023 Portland Retro Gaming Expo is in the back. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot to discuss, and we're going to get to that after this.
If you want more gaming and collecting content, don't forget to subscribe to stay in the know.
So I get to the convention center. So I go down, they look at my badge, and they go, hey, you're this way. Okay, there's only a couple people online. And then there's a whole group of other people this way, and they were kind of wrapped around like we used to do. There's only a handful of us in line. But there's going to be a lot more people at this thing, at the Power Pass. So I thought there would be a lot more people. Maybe like 30 of us or something, which is nothing compared to the hundreds upon hundreds usually, in line to go to the event, going all the way back to like 2014 when the lines really started appearing. We go in, and it's huge, and it was nice going in there with not a lot of people, taking your time, kind of strolling through, looking at the stuff. A lot of games. A couple of vendors are even like, wow, this is really it for all the Power Pass people. I think next year will be different. I saw plenty of little Samsons at various prices, Bonk's Adventure, Earthbound. You had your CIB games. There were some consoles you don't see a whole lot of, like the CDI. A couple other consoles. You had booths upon booths upon booths. There was knick-knack sellers selling wares. A lot of video game magazines. A lot of Nintendo tapes. A lot of Super Nintendo tapes. A lot of Genesis stuff. And what I was looking for, a lot of Saturn stuff. For an hour, there was no crowd, which was a lifesaver. It really was. There was no crowd. You could just take your time. And I'm like, should I shoot, footage, or should I game hunt? And I did a little bit of both. And then I was at one spot and I heard 5 minutes, everyone else can come in. It was like the horde coming in. You could just hear the people just coming in, and the atmosphere changed. It went from very casual, not really busy. As the new crowd came in, it started getting crowded and it got busier. Let's quickly talk about prices. They were about market or a little high. And I talked to a gentleman as we waited to go into a certain panel. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We were both kind of chit-chatting about what we saw at the event as we're waiting for the panel to open up. And he was like, yeah, I think people are marking their prices what they were 6 to 9 months ago. And I go, you know what? I think you're right. Because the prices that little Samson was at should have been $2,000. They're still trying to get almost $3,000 for little Samson. So the prices were hit or miss. Like I said earlier, after talking to that gentleman, we both kind of just came to the same conclusion. Prices seem to be a little outdated and a little older. One time, I got a game, and I'll talk about that soon, where I think a guy regretted what he priced it at because it was way under what it should have been. Someone had an M82 demo unit for sale. So I'm hunting for Saturn stuff. There's so many vendors at this thing. It was easy to get lost. In fact, I didn't even go to a Retro Game Traders booth. I never found it. I looked for it a second time, even a third time, and I kept coming across the same booth. I'm like, where am I? Turned it right on Albuquerque, I guess, and ended up way off. Never found that booth. Come across the knick-knack stuff, jewelry stuff, keychain stuff. Here's a face hugger. Some really cool artistic stuff. Dragon thing here is really cool. So many crowds. There was some booths you couldn't get in, really. Because of the layout, some of the booths were jam-packed so close together, you couldn't get help. I just walked away. If you went back, you actually got to see, the last Blockbusters in Bend, Oregon, the big Blockbuster sign. You got to actually buy all this little cool little artwork or DVDs. Garbage Pail Kids. I didn't pre-order it. I tried to buy it a second time and I couldn't get it. I had it here. As the day went on, I actually got to play the Mario pinball machine I didn't get to yesterday. There was no one there, so I went in there and played the Mario pinball machine. It's a really nice pinball machine. That was fun. I even tried this arcade MMA fighter top-down. This is guy's first game. It was really interesting to see that, and it was actually fun to play. So during the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, they had a VHS swap hosted by Movie Madness. And I thought it'd be interesting to find out if they had any Game Player game tapes or other, video game tapes like Game Pro or the N64 ones. No one had any of them. Speaking of movies, some of the booths had movies inside the main event. my favorite Survivor series with Demolition, Hulk Hogan, and Jake the Snake Roberts teaming up. There was actually a lot of VHSs that had horror and a lot of wrestling stuff too. There was toys. Some of the toys were really interesting. Someone had Transformers, Devastator, I think from the newer movies, not the G1. And that wasn't that bad of a price. It was only about $100. A lot of nostalgia stuff. Of course, going through the event, you guys see people dressed up. It was Cloud, Leon, Rex Viper AVGN. Hey, Nostalgia Critic, I guess you're there too. You know, the dinosaurs, because it was a cosplayer contest. The vendors were willing to do deals. I haggled quite a bit, and I got a lot of my stuff under what the sticker price was, with the exception like maybe 1 or 2 games. Went to the video game museum. Once again, they had the Art of Nintendo Power, which was really cool. You guys see all like the Nintendo Power stuff. They had the Dracula mask. They had the clay molds, like Mega Man, Mario here, stuff they took pictures of or cased around that magazine for their images. Love seeing that. Love to seeing the drawings or the prototypes of the magazines, what they were going to look like. You had, you know, Mega Man from the Game Boy, Mega Man for the NES, Demon's Crest. You had all these great issues, Nestor Comics, Top 20, and some other ones that weren't American. They were from another region. A Castlevania game that wasn't, I don't think, artwork or Nintendo Power, was cool to see. Next to it, they had the Atari Jaguar. You gotta see a kiosk there of the Atari Jaguar, which is the same one that was gonna be for the auction, or one similar to the one that's gonna be at the auction. Some of the advertisements for the Jaguar. Atari links all these games. Once again, my hat goes out to the Video Game Foundation and the Art of Nintendo Power. Both of them are fantastic exhibits to have at this show. So I was hunting for games and I missed AVGN's panel talking about Halloween games, which was kind of a bummer. I really wanted to go to it. I didn't realize the time. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to miss the next panel. And I missed the next panel, which was Lloyd Kaufman and RetroWare talking about the new Toxic Crusaders game. Because I was hunting for games. I was hunting for Saturn stuff. A wild hunt. Finally attended a panel, and it was the Unnecessary Podcast with Pat Contry and Ethan Ferguson. They've been doing it for 10 years, and it's actually so wrong as Retro Collecting the Retro Dad shows. 10-year anniversary as well. Great send-off for 10 years for Pat.
And 10 years of the same podcast.
He talked about some of the Amico stuff. One of the games, the more juicy part was WADA and the lawsuit. Like, a lot of us felt there was something fishy about that WADA stuff. Podcast was really fun. Talked about the N64 book he has coming out as well. It's great to see Pat and Ian again sitting in one of their panels. Haven't done it in a couple of years, and it was great. From Pat's panel, I went game hunting again. So I looked around for some more games, ended up going to the very last panel before the auction, and that was Lloyd Kaufman's panel with Trauma. 50 years of Trauma craziness. It was very, very cool. Guy here from Toxie even.
Big Pharma.
You got here from Lloyd.
It's a great book, though. James Gunn made it dark and funny and pretty useless.
Got to see a lot of trailers. Kids in the audience, which is weird because you get to see in, you know, Toxic Crusader 4, evil Toxie, or great Toxie's girlfriend or wife, whatever she is, and it was kind of just awkward they were in there. It was great hearing what Lloyd Kaufman had to say, and, you know, funny as always. And, you know, I've always been a fan of Trauma. They're the movies that at one time I thought about making, and maybe I will make a Trauma film someday. I always had an idea for one that would be just up their alley. Trauma Now.
You know what I really like? I really like to watch Trauma Now.
So I have this band here I got for the auction dinner. Got to see some of the auction stuff for sale. I got seated at table 5 with John Hancock. We were sitting there, you know, chit-chatting a little bit, watching the auction. We talked about Calit's Gamers for Kids. It's back. They had some AVGN stuff, some props from like a Rex Viper music video, a couple scripts. I wanted the Virtual Boy. The Virtual Boy kiosk went way past my price budget after spending all this money today. So what about pickups? Got this pixel frame, this Mega Man, Looked for game player, I looked for game pro, but mostly game players. There was a lot of Nintendo Power. Surprisingly, issues 1, but I wanted game players. Now, I found one really early on in the expo, Chippendale. I already have that one. Now I found another place that had game players. I'm like, I already have that. That's issue 1. That's pretty rare. They had issue 1 of game players. I'm going to do a whole in-depth video on game players because it's really confusing if you want to collect for these because there's so many subsets. Fist of the North Star. I thought I owned this still. Don't own it. I got it for a decent price. It's kind of a weird game. It plays weird. It's based on an anime and it's Fist of the North Star. Little Mermaid. Now I was going to do a comparison video to the NES one, and I didn't have this one. I'm like, where did it go? I don't know what happened to it, and it wasn't that bad of a price. Didn't really want to have to rebuy it again, but it was missing from my set. So, I was going around looking for Super Nintendo games, and I didn't really have a whole lot on my list. But I had to carry over from last year, and I bumped into it, and it was a decent price, so I figured, hey, I'll pick it up. And that's Joe and Mac 2. Only Super Nintendo game I got. It's the sequel of Joe and Mac, the arcade game. One that's been on my list for a while. Like I said, it's carried over from last year. Yes, I got the Garbage Pail Kids game. Garbage Pail Kids, Mad Mike, and the Quest for Stale Gum. Now, I normally don't buy homebrews or like newer NES games. I gotta play a little bit. You could pick between 1 or 4 characters. There's 6 levels. Played it, was actually pretty fun. There's 2 different color carts and there's just a mixture. And it looks like I got a red one. Once these are sold, they're done. They're not gonna print anymore. For the last couple months, I've been on a Saturn kick. Had a couple on my list. Alien Trilogy, Bug, Clockwork Knight 2, Silver Wings 21 recommended 3 Dirty Dwarfs. After he told me it was a beat 'em up, so I was like, okay, maybe I'll try to find that game. And maybe like the Die Hard arcade game or the Die Hard trilogy. Panzer Dragoon 1 and 2, I'll admit, I already got before this show. I got about a week ago at Double Jump Games for a pretty big trade-in and a sealed game that I got at a garage sale. Panzer Dragoon, you control a dragon, you go around shooting stuff. Panzer Dragoon 2, I believe, is a prequel, and it's also another shooter. So these were high on my list, and I'm glad I got them before the expo, but I want to show you I got them before the expo, so I got these about a week before the expo. I hope that made sense, because man, I'm tired. Now, surprisingly, I did find a lot of Panzer Dragoon sagas. One of the most expensive Sega Saturn games. I was like, no thank you. I did bump in like a Lunacy and a couple other ones too. Street Fighter, the movie. So I bumped into this, cut me a deal. I heard it's craptastic, depending who you ask. I can't wait to play and try it out. This was actually one of the last purchases of the night, and I only did it because it was only $20. Beat up here. And it's Tomb Raider. I got this at Video Game Wizards. Tomb Raider, pretty much the port of the PlayStation 1 game or the PC ones. I had it on the PC, at least the part 2 I had on PC. Looking for 3 Dirty Dwarves. I'm looking for Bug 1 and 2 and a couple other Saturn games. And I find Bug 2. So I grabbed Bug 2. Okay, I don't have Bug 1 yet. I looked around for Alien Trilogy and I found a couple of vendors. One was 100, one I think was 85, and then I bumped into this one. And it's 75 I offered, 70 or 65, I forgot which one I offered. Took the deal and I got Alien Trilogy now. And that was one of the ones on my list. Another Sega Saturn game down. I go to this one vendor area. I haven't gone to this area yet, and I come across a couple of booths. Some of them were knickknacks, some of them had NES games or some other games. And then I found a couple of Saturn games. Whoa! I was looking for that all over the place. I couldn't find it. And it's Bug. So I got the sequel before I got the first game. So I got Bug after Bug 2. Talked about wanting this in one of my Sega Saturn Adventure videos, and that was D. And I picked it up. So now I have D complete for the Sega Saturn. I have never played D before. Like I said, one of my friends talked all the time about D and loving it. But I've always wanted to play D. I forgot I picked this up. Mech Warrior. And I think I got it for less than what it says on my sticker. I really wanted this for the Saturn. I heard it plays really great on the Saturn. I don't have it on the PlayStation. I do have it on the Super Nintendo, but the graphics will be much better on the Saturn. One that I do have some fond memories of playing because I used to have it on the 32X. Fun little Mortal Kombat wrestling game. I want to say Mortal Kombat. That's kind of the characters are in the old school Mortal Kombat games. I saw this next game really early on in the expo. They wanted 110 for it. A couple of games on my list first, so I'll come back and I'll see if it's still there. My Saturn stuff kind of dried up. I found some of their Saturn games later on. I've already showed you. And I go, okay, will you take 100? He grabs his phone and his eyes got big. He goes, I might have to stick to this price. Die Hard Arcade. I only saw one other copy of this, so I got it for 106. I didn't have 110. I had 106, and he took that deal for 106. So it's the Die Hard Arcade for the Sega Saturn. I got one more game. I found it at a couple of vendors, and I think it's one of the decent priced ones because I got a deal with another game with it, and that's 3 Dirty Dwarfs. Can't wait to play it. It looks fun. I got all these Saturn games at the expo. I started the summer with 0 Saturn games, then went to 10, then went over 20, 30 or 40 Saturn games now. I have this beautiful lot, and I'm really happy. I love the shirt. Love the badge. The 2023 Portland Retro Gaming Expo is in the bag. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. And it's kind of bittersweet again. I said this last year, but I really mean it this year. As I was leaving the auction hall and all the consoles were off, it was kind of like a swan song. It was kind of like representing what's going on with this channel as I move forward. I'm no longer doing coverage at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. So it's an end of an era. There is one expo that I'll attend and do coverage again, and that's Khaled's Gamers for Kids. Great event. I love that expo, and I can't wait to go. Again, thank you so much for watching. Have fun, go game, and see you guys later. Please comment, like, follow, subscribe if you haven't. Hit that bell notification to find out what else I'm posting, what else I'm doing. I have other shows coming in the works that are not game related, but more like paranormal, called Strange Occurrences. And of course, I will be still doing the retro content that I've done for the last 10 years, but possibly in different kind of formats.
Nice. Bye.